Hello, I'm Jon Delano, KDK TV political editor. Thanks for joining us for Inside Pennsylvania Politics. Well, it's just about 6 weeks until Election Day, and that means we are back with weekly episodes until our post-election show. Joining us now on our panel, they are young, politically active Pennsylvanians from diverse backgrounds and opinions. I'm the only old guy here, which makes sense because elections are about the future. We have, starting with our folks on the right, we have our guest, Erin Coper, who is an Elliott resident and president of the Allegheny County Council of Republican Women, and Dylan Mitchell, who's a Pitt Jr. and vice president of the College Republicans at the University of Pittsburgh. And now joining us on the left side of the panel, we have Eric Stern, who is a Northside resident, LGBTQ activist, and father of one. And Shelley Pikelick, a Mount Lebanon resident and mother of 5. Now, every election cycle, the challenge is, how do we get young people to the polls? The candidates have always tried to meet voters where they are, from Bill Clinton playing the saxophone on Arsenio Hall. I don't know if any of you guys would remember that. To Barack Obama's campaign slogan getting remixed by William. Now the presidential and vice presidential candidates are teaming up with popular influencers and social media stars. Let's take a look.
Welcome back to Break 50. But that's the thing in golf, like, this is why the challenge is so interesting, because you have to be perfect every single hole.
Yeah. I mean, look at that.
That was awesome right there. Let's go.
Oh, never a doubt. This is going to be one of the greatest rounds of golf ever played.
So what's your take?
My take is the most neglected part of home ownership is the gutters. It's personal for me.
100% agree.
I've had problems with gutters before. You get your basement wet, you get ice dams, cause a lot of problems.
It's not good.
No, it is not, but there are fixes. Now, the other dangerous thing is that when you live in Minnesota, fall's a great time of year, a lot of leaves. You got to get up on a ladder.
And they get stuck in the gutter. The leaves get stuck in the gutter. I've seen many a man fall off the ladder.
Many a man, seriously.
Many a man fall off the ladder.
But there's a fix. You can put a gutter helmet over the top of it.
A gutter helmet?
It covers it, it lets the water go through, keeps it out of your house. I see this all the time.
How often do you like looking?
Oh, so there you have 2 examples. Former President Trump playing a round of golf with Bryson DeChambeau. I don't know who he is. And Governor Tim Walz, the Democratic running mate, sitting down with comedian Kareem Rama. Who's he? For Subway Takes. Filmed on the Harris campaign's tour bus right here in Pittsburgh, by the way. So let's talk about the role influencers and these non-traditional TikTok outlets are playing in the election right now. Who are the influencers that you and your friends are watching? Because believe me, I'm not watching any of this stuff, and I don't know any of these guys. So let's start with you, Eric. Who are these people?
Well, I think I would start by saying that I'm not sure that the 4 of us are representative of, typical young people and who that they are, getting their information from. Personally, I get a lot of my news and the influencers I see are on Twitter. I'm not on TikTok. I'm not on Facebook really. So, Twitter's where I go. And I tend to follow more mainstream news sources. So, reporters with the New York Times and the Washington Post. There are certainly some more influencers, like you said. Annie Wu Henry is someone I've worked with before. She's a Democratic influencer. A guy named Joshua Smithley, who I think is the smartest person in Pennsylvania politics. But I mean, what's really cool about influencers is that, they can be anyone. Like, it can just be a person at home who has a phone and decides, like, this is what I want to talk about. And if they're compelling enough, they could get 1, 2, 10, 100 million people.
I know. How do they do that? I'm on Twitter or X. I don't have anywhere near that number of people. Dylan, you're the youngest guy on this panel today. Who are the influencers that you pay some attention to? Are there any?
Yeah, again, I don't know that I'm fully representative. Like you said, I'm also on Twitter. That's where, I do a lot of my political stuff. And I think that platform, a lot of the people on there engage directly with campaigns, which is something that traditionally you haven't been able to do quite as much. You kind of needed a mediator through some sort of media network. Places like Twitter have really allowed people to engage directly with politicians, with campaigns, with candidates. But yeah, some of the people I know, like Turning Point has a lot of people that get kind of a lot of attention. Like Isabel Brown, I know, is one of them. We had Riley Gaines come to our campus, so kind of a lot of the issue-specific people. sometimes can really gain a lot of traction in certain areas. Chloe Cole is another one that was a detransitioner who's gone on kind of speaking tours and whatnot.
So far, I don't know any of these people that you guys have named. And yet we know some of them are popular. Some of them actually may be in other fields, but they enter into politics. Let's ask the ladies. Erin, what do you think in terms of influencers? Are there some out there that you pay attention to?
Yeah, well, I actually work with one. He's one of my best friends. His name is Scott Pressler, and he has been traveling the country for many election cycles, registering voters, and he has been invited to speak on big platforms like Turning Point Action, and he goes around the country. He's been invited to the White House. And
does he have podcasts, or how does he?
He's on every podcast. So, but he is an influencer. He has 1.2 million followers on X, and he does videos and he does trainings. But he is an influencer, and he is actually trying to invite conservative influencers to our state right now to really do this last push before the election. So he's been calling on his friends who are influencers.
Shelley, now I won't say what your age is, but you are our older member of this
Thanks,
panel.
Sean. That's great. Thank you.
The mother of 5
No,
kids.
I was going to tell that on myself. Yes, true.
So I don't know whether you follow influencers.
I don't.
But maybe your oldest does.
Yeah, so I am another one that's a consumer of traditional media. I'm sure that doesn't surprise anybody. Yes, the second oldest person on this stage. But I was speaking with a professor friend yesterday, and I asked him just this: where are your students getting their information? And he just typed right back TikTok, and that's it. And for better and for worse, right? I mean, these are interesting ways for kids to get engaged. They want to, they want to learn about politics. This is an inviting way for them to get involved, and then it's sort of unchecked what they're hearing. So there are pluses and minuses, I think, to what's happening there.
Have any of you heard of the show Hot Ones?
Oh yeah.
That's on YouTube.
I have heard of it.
That was enthusiastic.
I think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
So describe what it is.
Well,
Guests come on.
So guests come on and basically eat hot wings and hot sauce.
Oh, I do know about that.
With hotter and hotter sauce.
Correct, progressively hotter, and they just chit chat while their faces are getting red and they're sweating.
All right, so here's the question, Eric. Should Kamala Harris go on Hot Ones?
I think everybody should go on
Yes.
Hot Ones. I would love to go on, sure. I think Tim Walz actually is perfect for it. I mean, Kamala too, but Tim for sure.
What do you think, Dylan? Do you think the Republicans, Donald Trump, how would he do on Hot Ones?
Yeah, I don't know. I know he has been doing a lot of interviews with kind of people that aren't directly in the political realm. I don't know if you've heard of Theo Von. He's like a comedian that's getting pretty popular and has a podcast. And Trump went on and interviewed with him, and he said like his son Barron was recommending people for him to go interview with, and he recommended Theo Von. So, I watched that interview and I thought it was, first of all, hilarious because Trump's like almost a comedian as much as he is a politician. So, him with another comedian on there, it was some pretty great back and forth. And I thought that was, something that was really kind of endearing and humanizing.
I guess that's the real question. Is this the way to get votes from young people? What do you think, Erin?
Yeah, I think it's effective. I 100% do. And someone told me when I first started getting involved in politics, as far as someone you're working for as a candidate, people want to vote for someone that they go have a drink with at the bar.
Right.
So I think that when they become more relatable that way, you see them kind of, when they're invited on these podcasts or different streaming shows, they kind of are more relatable.
Right.
And that's could be a deciding factor for somebody to vote for.
Yeah. Anybody disagree?
No, not at all. I mean, it's a great way to get young people engaged, to humanize the candidates. Exactly right.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I remember Bill Clinton playing the saxophone. I'm old enough to remember that on Arsenio Hall.
Me too.
And it was pretty incredible. I wanted to ask about mail-in ballots. I'm not sure we're going to have much time for that because we only have a minute left. But mail-in ballots, I wanted to ask specifically, so let me just turn right to it. There's a lot of confusion about what the law is right now. Mm-hmm. But are mail-in ballots being used by young people? Maybe they are on college campuses. I don't know. What can you tell me? Dylan, you're our college campus person.
Yeah, a lot of the people I know on campus are honestly just registering to vote right there on campus because they're going to have multiple polling locations across the campus, so it's somewhere that you can easily walk to. So not a ton of them are going for mail-in ballots that I know of.
So they're voting here in Pennsylvania?
Yes, yeah.
And they're allowed to do so as long as
Yes, by Pennsylvania law, if they're here for college and they're living there on campus somewhere, they can change that to their legal address and vote here in PA.
For at least 30 days.
At least
be 30 days.
30
yeah.
days. So, well, we'll have more time to talk about this, I'm sure, later this fall, because how they vote is really, really important. But coming up, what recent polls say about the state of the presidential race right here in Pennsylvania and the issues at the top of voters' minds. Stick with us. Welcome back to Inside Pennsylvania Politics. So, panelists, out of curiosity, which of you is doing phone or door canvassing? And have you been canvassed, or has someone called you in this campaign? Aaron, we'll start with you.
Well, I live in the city of Pittsburgh. I've been getting mail, and I've been canvassed once so far.
Somebody's knocked on your door.
Right, but I'm also a Republican in the city of Pittsburgh, so I don't know. I'm just interesting to see.
How about you, Dylan?
Yeah, I do door-to-door canvassing. I've talked to a lot of people up in up in PA 17 mostly. I have not.
You
had
live
anyone,
up in the North Hills.
Yes, yeah. I have not had anyone come to my door, but I certainly get a lot of mail.
Right, a lot of mail.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you guys? What do you think, Shelley?
I haven't canvassed at all yet this election cycle. It's on my list. Maybe I'll get to it. I hope so. My husband is a registered Republican, and he gets canvassed more than I do in Mount Lebanon. For what it's worth, they come knocking on the door looking for him more than they come looking for me.
How about mailings? Have you got any?
Lots of mailings. And so we get both, obviously, too. We see a full spectrum of mailings at our house
both
because of our
parties.
registrations, yeah.
Yeah. How about you, Eric?
I feel like I get my door knocked and mail every single day. Like, I don't know what I've done wrong in a past life, but I mean, it's good. It's good. People
Well, you
are
live in the
excited.
city,
I live
too,
in the
like,
city, so and in a dense neighborhood, so it's easy to come. But I get mail, whether it's the presidential or the Senate race or the AG race, every day.
You get polled, too.
And polled.
They really want to hear from you.
I'm just special, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask that question as well about getting polled. Have any of you been polled by a legitimate pollster, not by someone with one party or another?
Mm-mm.
No, never.
No.
Never.
I get polled all the time. I don't know.
You are on all the right
Yeah, well,
lists.
and I have friends who work for campaigns, so I always try and record the polling calls to see if there's information I can glean from it and
Very
send to
smooth.
them.
Yeah. Well, since we can't go door to door to get everyone's votes on how they're going in this election, we tend to rely on pollsters and polls to get a picture of where the race stands. So we averaged out the 5 high-quality polls of Pennsylvania voters from the past week, and the results range from Harris ahead by 6 points to a straight tie. The average puts Harris at 49.4%, Trump at 46.6%. But there was about a 4-point margin of error in these polls, which really means the numbers could be reversed. In other words, Trump could be ahead by 3 points over Harris. So I guess the question here is that when you look at these polls, is it your conclusion, like everybody else's, that this is a jump ball election? Eric?
Absolutely. I think it is a 50-50 race in Pennsylvania today. And, it's scary. But I think that when you look at the aggregate of the polls, that reflects a snapshot in time and the reality we're facing right now. I don't know that means that, I think Harris is likely going to have a better ground game, more excited volunteers, a lot more of them. Democrats are going to vote more by mail than Republicans because their party leaders are telling them to, as opposed to Republican leaders who are telling them not to. And Democrats are going to have more money at the end of the day. So I'd rather be Harris than Trump, but I still think it's a jump ball, like you say.
Yeah. Well, let's give the Republicans a chance to tell us why it's not. What do you think, Aaron? Or is it a jump ball?
Yeah, I mean, we know that it's going to come down to less than 50,000 votes in Pennsylvania. I think it's going to be extremely close. However, we cannot deny that we are flipping counties across Pennsylvania red. Luzerne just flipped a couple of days ago. We have flipped Bucks County. We're about to flip Center County. We flipped Beaver County. So we are flipping a lot of big counties, and Republicans
in terms of registration.
However, what we're doing this time around is we're really following up with these voters to get them out to the polls because, historically Republicans have a turnout problem.
Yep.
So we are getting them newly registered, and we're going after different demographics too, like the Amish, the hunters, the truckers. So we're really kind of tapping into a demographic that we have not before to really get them out to vote. So we're kind of I think we're a little bit more motivated this time.
Right.
So,
Shelley, what do you think?
Jump ball 100%. As a Democrat who lived through the 2016 election, if it showed Harris was up by 10 points right now, I still wouldn't feel, comfortable, happy, satisfied. In some ways, I think this is motivating to voters, people who really care about these candidates. Obviously, I think they should care about Harris. This motivates them to get out to the polls. It's anybody's game. It feels that way for sure.
10 seconds. Last word, Dylan.
Yeah, I think it's definitely anybody's ball. It's going to come down to who gets out, chases the votes, and makes sure that at the end of the day, people show up to the polls or mail in or do early, whatever they can do to make sure they count.
Well, it's always a question of who votes. And if people are not out, then the side that doesn't get the votes loses. It's really that simple. And we have less than 6 weeks now. And so I think in one of our upcoming shows, we'll talk a lot about get out the vote efforts. So we're going to be back in a few moments, so stick with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Inside PA Politics. I'm Jon Delano. Taking a look at the Pennsylvania Attorney General race now, which has no incumbent. Democratic candidate Eugene DePasquale is running against Republican David Sunday. DePasquale says he will defend abortion and reproductive rights, fight corruption by elected officials and businesses, advocate for consumer protections, and hold school districts accountable for providing fair and equitable education. He supports universal background checks for gun purchases and red flag laws. Dave Sunday says mental health must play a role in criminal justice. He has pushed for increased access to drug treatment, particularly in prison. He says he doesn't believe the state constitution protects the right to abortion access, but says the law in Pennsylvania protects abortion through the 23rd week, and he will enforce the law as it's written. He says his priorities include targeting fentanyl coming into the country, gang violence, and protecting seniors. So, panelists, are the candidates being outspoken on the issues that you're hearing people talk about? What do you expect to hear from an attorney general candidate? Dylan, let's start with you.
Yeah, I think Dave Sunday is being outspoken on the issues that you want to hear from an attorney general. You know, what they're actually going to do as attorney general. As a district attorney in York, he's been really successful. It seems that he really understands what the job's actually about, which is enforcing the law, being the top prosecutor. He's been a prosecutor for years. Eugene, it seems like he almost thinks he's running for a legislative position. He keeps talking about what laws he wants to see passed instead of how he's actually going to enforce them. He's never prosecuted anything or been in a courtroom. It doesn't seem like he really understands what an AG is supposed to do.
Well, what do you think, Eric, about these candidates for Attorney General?
Oh, shockingly, I don't see eye to eye. I think that DePasquale, his priorities are exactly what we need in the state's top cop and top, law enforcement officer. And talking about abortion rights is just critical because you've seen in other states attorneys general suing the federal government to try and take away the rights of women and to try and roll back, the rights of all Americans 50, 60, 100 years. And Eugene has been at the front line saying that that will never happen if he is attorney general. And that's just crucial. But I think the other thing about, why this race is so important and why people are seeing, lots about it is because, as Josh Shapiro has demonstrated, AG sometimes stands for aspiring governor. And, it is a common stepping stone. We're seeing it in states all across the country. So, the person we're electing now, AG, could have their eyes set on something else.
Yeah. Do you think voters pay much attention to this Attorney General's race? Obviously, we have big races for President and U.S. Senate. Do you think this race gets lost?
Yeah, no, it does not get lost. And I think people are absolutely paying attention. 15 people die every single day from fentanyl in Pennsylvania. Dave Sunday has a nonprofit to help with treatment. He has been known to help with reform, a thoughtful reform, and he has results. As a district attorney in York County, he has brought down crime in his first term by 30%, and then 40% reduction in the prison population. And I think that's what everyone wants, and I think crime and public safety are huge. And if you didn't see what happened in Philly the other day with the people jumping on police cars and going crazy and throwing flamethrowers, then, we don't want that coming here to Allegheny County or Pittsburgh, and he wants to go after violent criminals.
Shelley, we're going to give you the last word on Eugene Pasquale.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing here is the difference between probably what Republicans want to hear from their AG candidate and what Democrats want to hear from theirs. DePasquale is saying exactly what I want to hear, that he's putting forefront that he is, absolutely pro-choice is the very first thing I want to hear from him, and I'm not alone in that. And he's got all the right stuff on crime and all of that as well, but I think we're coming from two different places in terms of what we want to hear from our candidates.
Well, I think like Josh Shapiro, he's focusing on consumer protection issues rather than the fact, because he's not, as you correctly point out, he's never been a prosecutor.
He has not. That's absolutely right.
Good.
Yep.
Well, thank you very much, panelists, as always. It's now time to take a quick pause for another break. We'll be back with some final thoughts coming up. Welcome back. Time now for some final thoughts from our panelists. Okay, panelists, real quick. What does the candidates, what do they have to do to get young people to come out and vote? Dylan?
Focus on their issues like the economy and being able to afford housing in the future, and harness their get out to vote efforts.
Eric?
I mean, I thought we already decided they need to go on the hotlines. But otherwise, I agree with Dylan. It's just talking about the issues that young people care about, which is the same as everybody else.
Aaron?
They need to go where the voters are, visit the campuses.
Visit the campuses. Go where the voters are. You got the last word, Shelley?
Messaging, social issues in particular, and obviously the economy.
Got it. Thank you, guys, and thanks for watching Inside PA Politics. You can catch us streaming at 11 a.m. on Thursdays and Fridays and at 12:30 on KDK Plus on Sunday. When we come back next week, we'll have a special edition of Inside PA Politics all about the U.S. Senate race ahead of the debate on October 3rd. So thank you again for watching this show. And thank you to our panelists. Remember, our government is only as good as you make it. Be sure to vote. Have a great day, everyone.